I guess the lighting is terrible here. There you go. There you go, mate. Hi, live will start in about 2 minutes. Just had to adjust everything, and you have to listen to the cat while he's meowing around. Buddy, come here. Buddy, be a nice cat. You're being loud. You're disturbing the customer. Tenzin, Happy New Year. He wants to go out. It's too cold and too dark, and he'll get hit by a car. Other than that, he's welcome. What am I going to do first? I think we'll do holiness first. And this, will second. Ay, ay, ay. Okay, that's that.
What was that first book there?
The Approaching the Buddhist Path, which is the new Lamrim, and going to be 10 volumes. What time is it? Quelle heure a-t-il? Good evening. It's 7 o'clock here in the northeast of the United States, or North America, whatever you want to call it. And this is the Tibet Center. Kunchab Tarduling is our Tibetan name. It means place pervaded by seekers of liberation, a name given to us by the predecessor of the current Ling Rinpoche, in case you're interested. This is our twice weekly presentation of the Buddha Dharma, specifically the Lamrim Chenmo, stages on the path to enlightenment by Lama Tsongkhapa. If there's any problem with the transmission, picture, sound, etc., and so forth, please text me and Mr. Smith. All the prayers we say are on the website in the FAQ section, the tibetcenter.org. Scroll down to FAQ, scroll down to prayers. If there's anyone for whom you wish us to pray for, put their names in the chat box, and Darren will relay them to me, because I don't see the chat box here. I don't know why, but who cares? I wish Happy New Year to everyone. Happy birthday to Venerable Karuna, who spoke very eloquently last night, and elegantly also. She will be doing next Wednesday night. I will do Tuesday. So I'll give you the schedule soon. So we'll start with the prayers we normally say. Prayer for the spread of the teachings throughout the length and breadth of the West. By the force of the blessings of the non-fallacious three precious gems and of the truth of our pure selfless wishes, may the precious Buddhist teachings flourish and spread to the expanse of all areas throughout the length and breadth of the West, for all the people living there together with their near ones who have engaged in the teachings and have faith and respect for them. May all conditions adverse to their practice of the pure Dharma be dispelled, and an excellent collection of favorable conditions increase like the waxing moon. And especially for those who work on methods to accomplish the flourishing and spreading of the victorious one's teachings, which are the source of benefit and happiness. May they never be oppressed by masses of interference and adverse conditions, and may this spontaneously happen just as we have hoped and wished. The Heart Sutra. Thus have I heard once. The Blessed One was dwelling in the royal domain of the Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a big gathering of great monks and great bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the samadhi which examines the dharmas, called profound illumination, and at the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, looking at the profound practice of transcendent knowledge, saw the five skandhas and their natural emptiness. Then, through the inspiration of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to Avalokiteshvara, how should those noble ones learn who wish to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge. And Avalokiteshvara answered, Venerable Shariputra, whoever wishes to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge should look at it like this, seeing the five skandhas and their natural emptiness. Form is empty. Emptiness itself is form. Emptiness is not separate from form. Form is not separate from emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discriminating awareness, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Thus, all the dharmas are empty and have no characteristics. They are unborn and unceasing. They are not impure or pure. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, since there is emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discriminating awareness, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no objects of mind, no quality of sight, no quality of hearing, no quality of smelling, no quality of tasting, no quality of sensing, no quality of thought, no quality of mind consciousness. There are no nidanas from ignorance to old age and death, nor their wearing out. There is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no ending of suffering, and no path, no wisdom, no attainment, no non-attainment. Therefore, since there is no attainment, the bodhisattvas abide by means of transcendent knowledge. And since there is no obscurity of mind, they have no fear, they transcend falsity and pass beyond the bounds of sorrow. All the Buddhas who dwell on the past, present, and future by means of transcendent knowledge, fully and clearly awaken to unsurpassed, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of transcendent knowledge, the mantra of deep insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra which calms all suffering, should be known as truth, for there is no deception. In transcendent knowledge, the mantra is proclaimed, Tayata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasam Gate Bodhisoha. O Shariputra, this is how a bodhisattva mahasattva should learn profound transcendent knowledge. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised the bodhisattva mahasattva Avalokiteshvara, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, profound transcendent knowledge should be practiced just as you have taught, and the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One has said this, Shariputra and Avalokiteshvara and that whole gathering, and the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, their hearts full of joy, praise the words of the Blessed One. We'll say the refuge and bodhicitta vow 3 times, as you know. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. So, to start the new year right or wrong, no, to start it properly, we'll start with His Holiness Dalai Lama. Just some brief things. He is the embodiment of all of Tibetan Buddhism. He studies and has studied the texts of all the sects. He's visited their centers. He's invited their lamas, Kagyu, Sakya, Nyingma, etc. So all these, if you're curious about Tibetan Buddhism, sometimes these sects seem unique or this and that. They all have their headquarters on Shantideva Street. They all practice the basic Mahayana. Some hold this tantric lineage, some hold that. Some practice this way, some that, but they all converge on the principles written in the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. So if you're worrying about those things, don't. There's other things to worry about. So Happy New Year, Aradhana, Steve. Bulla Bulla, and etc., and whoever else is listening. Mark, I hope you're there. Fill me in on Laurie's current status. Thank you. So we'll just talk. We had signs of progress, etc. This is from the new Lamrim, I'm calling it. They call it that too, but not so loudly. Approaching the Buddhist Path, Volume 1 of a soon-to-be 10-volume series. 9 are already out. And you'll notice his technique is different. He's weaving different things, and he's talking about one main topic by giving you a little of this, a little of that, from the advanced to the beginning. And it's very convincing to the Western ear, I think. But what do I know? So Bulla Bulla, Aradna again. So let me start with signs of progress. I think we covered this a little before, but this is page 227, and then I'll go into how he spends his day. He's wrote about how he spends each day and how he practices. And if you notice, he jumps between regular sutra, tantra, basic Buddhism. Interesting. So this is signs of progress. How do we know? This page 227 of Approaching the Buddhist Path. If we devote our lives to familiarizing ourselves with the Dharma, we will definitely see a change in our mind. Otherwise, why bother, right? As a Buddhist saying predicts, you will be able to see the whole world and everything in it as Dharma instructions. All of a sudden, the events of the day take on a new color, and they start to instruct you. That's somewhat indicated in the prayers, like, may I hear the sound of Dharma from birds, trees, etc. Something like that, from subways. I don't know. This occurs when, through daily practice, our mind has become familiar with the Buddhist teachings, and we are able to practice in most of the situations we encounter. So it's very therapeutic and helpful. When we have gained some experience of impermanence, we are aware of things changing, arising, and ceasing in each moment. With this understanding prominent in our mind, our clinging to people and things that are unable to provide us lasting happiness decreases automatically. The back of our mind starts working, you want to put it that way, or the more subtle levels of mind start exerting their influence on the surface crazy mind that we have. Or maybe you don't, I do. Automatically, our mind is more relaxed and at ease, as Holiness says. When doing analytical meditation on the stages of the path, this is direct advice from him now, contemplate each point, considering it logically and relating it to your own experience. Key. While thinking about these points, do not let the mind wander to objects of attachment or become sleepy or dull. Try anyway. Beginners, yes, it's going to happen. Try to have a mind that is clear and concentrated, that stays on the points you are contemplating and is able to penetrate the meaning. Certain signposts along the path help us check whether our meditations are progressing in the right directions and bearing fruit. If we meditate consistently on how to rely on a spiritual mentor and come to a point where we do not pick faults in our spiritual teachers and feel genuine respect for their qualities and gratitude for their kindness, we have achieved a good result from this meditation, if that's what you do. Some don't start with that. Some don't start with devoting to spiritual master. They start in a different place. Okay, fine. You'll come to it eventually. If we meditate, for instance, now everyone should do this, on precious human life and have a stable feeling, my present life with so much freedom and opportunity to practice the path is difficult to receive and very precious. I do not want to waste it, but direct it towards familiarizing my mind with bodhicitta and emptiness. If we do that, we are proceeding in the right direction. If we pay less attention to the happiness of this life and prepare for future lives, we are experiencing the result of meditation on impermanence. If acting destructively repulses us and we want to avoid it like poison, we have benefited from meditating on the sufferings of unfortunate rebirths, which cause sufferings. These outward destructive actions cause them. The mark of gaining experience of the meditation on refuge is that we understand the qualities of the three jewels and have deep trust in their ability to guide us on the path. Such feelings may arise during a meditation session, but the sign of real progress is when they occur repeatedly. How do we know we have generated true renunciation of cyclic existence? Tsongkhapa says that when, through habituation, day and night, we do not wish for the pleasures of cyclic existence and yearn for liberation. If that happens, we have developed a true determination to be free. We think we're free, we're politically free, maybe, but total freedom. You can handle death. Very good. Such an attitude has ramifications for our life, His Holiness says. He says, we cease being obsessed with the pleasures of cyclic existence, and things that used to irritate us cease to do so. Not everything, but slowly. Things you can handle some of the troubles you couldn't before. That's the way I put it. This does not mean, however, that in deep sleep we will aspire for liberation, but that is not possible. Nor is our determination to be free manifest when we are in deep concentration, realizing emptiness, especially if you have direct experience of it. Nevertheless, it's not been lost. It is present but latent when our mind is focused on other objects. So things may not be on the main screen, but they're underneath and they're informing our actions, informing our attitudes, and giving us good qualities like patience. We have realized bodhicitta when, through habituation and practice, habituation is a buzzword for meditation. Habituation and practice, the great compassion and the aspiration to attain awakening arises spontaneously in our mind. That's a big deal, by the way. Whenever we hear, see, or think about any sentient being, as explained in Tsongkhapa's three principal aspects of the path, Lamso Namsum is the way it's in Tibetan. For those who care about that, that's good for you. The measure of having ascertained the correct view of emptiness is seeing that dependent arising and emptiness are not contradictory. This is being told constantly to us, so we have to get it. But are mutually reinforcing, not just complementary, but mutually reinforcing, such that the mere reminder of dependent arising brings understanding of emptiness and vice versa. Generating virtuous qualities and realizations involves both undistracted focus and analytical discernment. Tsongkhapa from the Lamrim Chenmo says, is the first volume. Therefore, the Buddha says that any achievement of virtuous quality in the three vehicles requires a state of mind that is, one, an actual serenity or similitude of it. Calm abiding. They're using serenity now here. Calm abiding is what we studied, but the different words apply to the same meaning. Or similitude of it. Unless you're on your way, your mind is more focused. Not the true calm abiding with pliancy, etc. That is a big deal. Doesn't get you out of samsara, but it gives you the tools to start studying emptiness, which will get you out. This reminds, which rests one pointedly on its virtuous object of meditation, which without wandering from it, to an actual insight or similitude of it. In other words, okay, I'll let him explain, which carefully analyzes the virtuous object of meditation and distinguishes both the real nature and the diversity of phenomena. The real nature is its non-inherently existent mode of being. The diversity of phenomena is its conceptual appearance. You always got to have different words for everything. Can't they settle it? There ought to be a law. I don't know. If we take, quote, good qualities and realizations to have similar meanings, serenity and insight or mental states that are similar to them are needed to gain them. This is certainly true for the realization of selflessness, which may be conceptual and inferential on the path of preparation. The path of preparation is called that because preparing to see directly, or direct and non-conceptual on the paths of seeing, and then the next path, meditation. After that, no more learning, you're a Buddha. For good qualities like renunciation, compassion, or bodhicitta to be definitively achieved, we need serenity or a state of one-pointedness like it. To realize selflessness in the conceptual inferential realization of the path of preparation, or the direct non-conceptual realization on the path of seeing, both full serenity and insight are necessary. To realize selflessness before that, similitudes of serenity and insight are required. Yes, you build to it. Yes? Similitudes, or what's another word? Well, we'll figure it out later. A reasonable facsimile, they used to say on things. For those who would like to gain attainments quickly, this may seem like a high bar to reach. However, this description makes it clear that a realization is not a flash of understanding that comes and goes. It is a stable state of mind that can be sustained with undistracted focus. stable state of mind that can be sustained with undistracted focus. Unlike fleeting flashes that are difficult to replicate, and you may have had some, the experience from gradual cultivation can be generated repeatedly and enhanced through single-pointed concentration. Yet you get deeper and deeper into the realization. He says you should ask yourself, what are realistic expectations for you on the path? Second, what can you do to accomplish them? How can you keep a happy mind and cultivate patience while you go about creating the causes for patience, or getting the mind used to? I don't know. That's a nice, so let me check our clock here. See what time it is. We have some time. Personal reflections on the path. I'm not going to read the whole chapter because it would take up a couple of classes, but just pieces here and there that I've outlined, just to give you a picture of His Holiness, who's a combination of all Tibetan Buddhism rolled into one. Amazing. And plus he carries on his temporal duties of leading the Tibetan people, not politically, but deeper than that. My Day, chapter 11, which is on page 231. People often ask me about my daily schedule and Dharma practice. I'm a very poor practitioner. Yeah. Where does that put us? I'm a very poor practitioner, but I keep trying because I am convinced that practicing the Dharma is the path to peace and happiness. Practical. In Dharamsala, India, where I live, I wake up at 3:30 a.m. and immediately visualize the Buddha and recite a verse of homage written by Nagarjuna from the Mula Madhyamaka Karika. And here's Nagarjuna's 4 lines. Enthused by great compassion, you taught the exalted Dharma to dispel all wrong views. To you, Gautama, I prostrate, Gautama Buddha. So sometimes I change the last line to say, may I be inspired by Gautama Buddha instead of I prostrate. This verse is especially meaningful to me because it points out the Buddha's compassionate motivation that led him to identify ignorance as the cause of dukkha. What is causing all the trouble in the world? Ignorance. Of what? Of reality as it really is. Oh. So, and then to attain the wisdom realizing the ultimate nature, to dispel that ignorance. Ignorance is not a mere lack of knowledge. It's like I don't know, the size of the national debt, or I know the capital of North Dakota, whatever. No, it's a distorted apprehension that grasps that existing what doesn't exist, inherent existence. It generates from us the appearances of inherent existence. We understand things that we see from that point of view, and the problem is within. Things are what they are. They're naturally empty of inherent existence, but we think they have inherent existence. So we have to eliminate something that's not even there. That's a little difficult. If you have a disease or something, you know the disease, and you do the proper answers to eliminate. It's a little easier. Something that's not there, how do we have to eliminate our habitual way of seeing things and thinking. Since it's habitual, it carries a lot of power itself from our constantly being familiar with it. So, ignorance, not a mere lack of distorted the grasp that seeing what that is as existing, what doesn't exist, inherent existing. That is what they call the object of negation. You want to put it more in the slang of, or the parlance of the Lamrim, object of negation. Bodhicitta, his love for all sentient beings and wishing to put them in the state of Buddha as he is in, then spurred him to accumulate merit, purify his mind, and hear, think, and meditate on the Dharma. In that way, he became an awakened teacher with the ability to liberate sentient beings by giving faultless teachings. Reflecting in this way increases my confidence in the Buddha and in the path. I practice to transform my mind. It also helps me to appreciate my precious human life with many fortunate qualities. I live in a place and time where the Buddha has appeared and his teachings still exist. And I have belief in things worthy of respect, such as ethical conduct, concentration, and wisdom. I find these to be very things to go after, and not the latest car or whatever. Recalling this daily enables me to maintain a joyful attitude, immune to depression and discouragement. So this practice, always think of your precious human life, is an antidote to this feeling of depression or, discouraged, I can't do this, and the rut you put yourself in. Your groove became a rut. Now what? So, after reciting this verse 3 times, this is His Holiness talking about his daily practice on page 232, for those keeping score, I visualized the Buddha Vajradhara dissolving into me and inspiring my mind. It's weaving in the tantric element nicely, painlessly. This gives me a feeling of courage and the willingness to persevere in my practice. I then generate bodhicitta and remind myself that I can surely see transformation happening within myself, although it may be small. This encourages me to rejoice in my virtue and continue practicing. Another rung up. To clear the fogginess of sleep from my mind, I drink an espresso. No, he doesn't drink an espresso. That's what I do. To clear the fogginess of sleep from my mind, I recite Manjushri's mantras, Om Arapatanadi, Om Arapatanadi, Om Arapatanadi, and then recite D as many times as possible with one breath, which I try, and I don't get 100, but I'll try. I'll keep trying. They do that. They do Patanai, Patanai, D, 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 one breath to do 100 DDs. Supposedly it invokes Manjushri. It affects the mind. You become smarter. And I think there's something to it. What is the mantra? When the people often ask, one of the definitions I saw was syllables uttered by a supreme being, a Buddha, while in meditative equipoise. So it's carrying the fruit of that equipoise. And since it's uttered, it's for the world. They're not said it, not vocalized. So you could think of that. So mantras are not something to fool around with. It's easy to do. A lot of the sadhanas, the time to say, when you're tired, now recite mantra, because it's hard to visualize. Okay, and then go to it. You could do it while you're doing anything. So Chongla Rinpoche used to say, the Tibetans are always saying, Om Mani Padme Hum, even when they're taking the rosary to beat their kids. Oh, well. So Marapatana, D, 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 as many times as possible with one breath, imagining Manjushri's wisdom in the form of the syllable D, absorbing into a D at the back of my tongue. He's giving you a tantric technique now. At the back of my tongue, while meditating on Manjushri like this, I reflect on the 4 truths of the Aryas, or the 4 noble truths, especially the liberating power of true paths and the peace that comes with actualizing true cessations, the end of sufferings. The result, of course, peace. Nirvana is peace, one of the prayers says. Then I begin prostrations and daily recitations, followed by a glance meditation in which I recite and contemplate verses sequentially, outlining the complete stages of the path to awakening. You could do Sankapa's short Lam Rim. You could do that in a couple of minutes, not a big deal. You could do that every day. After that, I do formal meditation, predominantly analytical meditation, to increase my understanding of the Buddhist teachings. Here, my efforts are mainly directed to meditation on dependent arising and emptiness, as well as on compassion and bodhicitta, the 2 main things. You could just always do that and you'll be in good condition. Here, my efforts are mainly directed to dependent arising. I also do the tantric practice of deity yoga, which involves imagining transforming death, the intermediate state between one life and the next, and rebirth in the 3 bodies of a Buddha. Interesting. Dhammakaya, Sambhogakaya, Nirmanakaya. We'll explain those down the road. I continue meditating, taking a few breaks, including breakfast, and exercise. He's late 80s and he exercises. Smart man. Until about 8:30 a.m. If there is no office work, then I study Dharma texts. I delight in reading the Indian and Tibetan treatises and commentaries repeatedly, each time discovering something new in them. There's a Tibetan saying, if you read a book 9 times, you will have 9 understandings. A good book, not the average, whatever people read these days, and romance novel or whatever. Because this has been my experience, I will continue studying until the end of my life and recommend that others do likewise. Often my study is interrupted because I'm needed at the office. Fortunately, it's right down the hall. Lunch is just before noon, and after that, I go to the office to work. My afternoons are filled with appointments, one right after the other, and that's true. It's very hard. He's a very tight schedule. Nikki told me this. As a Buddhist monk, I don't eat dinner, and around 8:30 p.m. I go to sleep. I sleep soundly, without any sleeping pills, and enjoy very peaceful meditation. One teaching of the Kadam masters called the Four Entrustments especially touches my heart. And this is deep practice from simple practitioners. And here's the 4 lines. Entrust your mind to Dharma practice. Entrust your Dharma practice to a life of poverty. Entrust your life of poverty to death. And entrust your death to an empty cave. That's something to investigate to see if there's commentary on. I'll have to look at it. I think this quote is from Kadam, sayings of the Kadampa masters that Thupten Jinpa put together. I think so. Wait a minute, there's a note, and it might tell you. I think that's it, but because I have that book, and maybe I'll look it up and we'll run it into class. What the hell is it? 57. I could still see how happy. Wisdom of the Kadampa masters. Okay, so I'm going to look that up. Anyway, we'll end this at that. We have more. We'll bring him back next session, Tuesday night, if we wish. Write those cards and let us sing. Bring back the Dalai Lama. I'm fooling. A little bit as we were advised by His Holiness to become familiar with praise for dependent arising or dependent relativity, whatever you choose to say. The prayer that Tsongkhapa wrote, and it's translated by 2 people, Losang Gyatso and Graham Woodhouse in this edition, but we also have the Gavin Kilty translation, which we have on our website. You can scroll down and find it. And that's from poetry, devotional poetry that Tsongkhapa wrote. It's a book. I think it's called Splendors of the Autumn Moon, something like that. It's available. You can Google it, Amazon it, or whatever you do. Or go to the Cargill bookstore up in Woodstock online. They're very good. So we're going to talk about what we ended with last time. And we're doing verse 7. No others with this teaching seen, so you alone we teach your name. He's got it in rhythm. That's why his translation is different. False praise to call a forder or give a fox the name of a lion. In other words, nobody else should be called a teacher except Buddha. So let's explain that idea. We were talking last session that I gave on the permanent Unitarian independent self, those concepts. That's how we ended Geshe Sopa's commentary. Here it's fleshed out a little. And let me check the time before I babble on. It's in Long Island. Gene, good evening and Happy New Year. How's your father?
He's good.
Good. All right. Excellent. Page 53 of this wonderful book. Again, I'll put it up. Tsongkhapa's Praise for Dependent Relativity, ladies and gentlemen. The first wrong view, the misconception that the self is permanent, unitary, and independent, a very basic wrong view. Then it gets more and more intricate and into more and more subtle meanings to get to the actual object of negation. Here's how that starts. It's notable because major non-Buddhist Indian philosophical school assert a self of this kind, not only Buddhists. Oh, let's see. The Buddhist thinkers of old, when Buddhism was a growing and flourishing religion in India, naturally defined themselves in contrast to these other schools. They adhere to a self-nature. Buddhism asserts no self-nature, anatman. Atman is a self-nature. Anatman, the negative, is no self-nature. In Tibet, the followers of the Indian schools whose views did not become established north of the Himalayas divide became known as outsiders. Chilapa, Nanglapa, something like that. While disciples of the Buddha became known as insiders or inner beings. Okay, that's nice. Us and them, maybe? Don't hold that too strong. That's not helpful. The outsiders are referred to in the next verse as forters, chirtika in Sanskrit, another term used by Buddhists to refer to those Indian pandits who hold non-Buddhist views. And then he repeats the verse. No others with this teaching seen, so you alone teach your name. False praise to call a forter, that will give a fox the name of a lion. Okay, that's very nice. Adherence, he goes on, the 2 of them, Venerable Losang Gyatso and Graham Woodhouse, both monks. Adherents of other creeds posit their own fords. Here's why they use the word fords, by which to cross to the far shore of felicity. Oh my God. Felicity. There is no one among them who correctly teaches dependent arising, and thus no one who deserves the title of teacher. All right, now he explains the verse. Just as none but the king of beasts is worthy of the name lion. To call a fox such would be mere flattery. I mean, I don't do these things. Do you call foxes lions? I see. The self that most non-Buddhist Indian schools assert, and this is important now, is first of all unitary. What does that mean? Unitary means partless. Of course, we know the body's not partless, but this self that we have of ourselves is partless. It cannot be broken into smaller components. It is independent, permanent, meaning not under the power of or depending upon the aggregates. Really? It is permanent. Permanent is in a Buddhist context means changeless, static, and without production and disintegration. It's the opposite of impermanent, but it does not necessarily mean singly existing forever. This sort of saying, excuse me, pardon me, sorry to rattle your cage. Wake you, or maybe you woke up. Good morning. Yeah, that's hard to get around. It means it's not, it eventually will go away, but moment by moment, it's staying there. Today's mountain is yesterday's mountain, is the mountain the day before. No, technically nothing's that way. Your desk, your chair, your house, whatever. So the disagreement between Buddhists and the Indian schools that posit a permanent self is not about whether the self goes from one life to life. Both agree that it does. Oh, let's see now. The question is whether what goes on is changing from moment to moment. Buddhists say it is, the non-Buddhists say it's not. That's a big point. Some see a permanent self as necessary to guarantee continuity from life to life and moment to moment. This is mentioned in Shantideva's book. Such a self is the bearer of a person's true identity through time. A tree loses its leaves in the autumn, shows bare branches in the winter, and puts forth fresh greenery in the spring, but something recognizable persists, the tree. You get the idea what they're aiming at there, the way they think. Buddhists agree that the tree endures, but only by changing as it goes, in other words, moment by moment. Is there anything still there in the second moment that was there in the first? Of course, the tree. Yeah. But is the tree in the second moment the same as the tree in the first moment? Oh, yeah, we would say. They're saying no, technically no. And I think science would say no, too. I don't know. Indeed, it is not. That's his conclusion. The hardest rock of gemstone may maintain a similar appearance for 1,000,000 years, but it is still disintegrating moment by transient moment. Why? It was caused by something. If it's caused, it's moment by moment disintegration. No matter how dense the granite, don't take it for granted, no matter how dense the granite or how rigidly structured the diamond, every instant it passes away into a new transformation, just like a flickering candle flame or foam on a wave, which is much more, quickly disappearing. But that's something you have to get used to mentally, because it has a bearing on how your thought patterns run. Even at the subatomic level, now we're getting jiggy here. At the subatomic level, there is no fundamental particle or packet of energy that is not subject to this process of decay. If the necessary causes and conditions assemble, then a second moment similar to in type to the first arises, similar in type. Not the exact thing, similar in type he's using, and we observe continuity. If a radically different set of causes and conditions obtains, we observe disintegration without reintegration. We observe gross disintegration, not moment by moment. The building falls down, the mountain landslides, whatever. What place is there for a permanent, unaffected whole or self in all of this? A unitary or partless self could not be made up of the aggregates. In other words, you designate yourself on the basis of having a body and mind and feelings and all this. Those are called the aggregates. How could the self that is unitary have aggregates which are changing, right? would have to be an entity quite distinct from them. Simply speaking, a person's aggregates are his body and mind, but they are traditionally enumerated as five: form, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and mind. Form is this is the way they break it out. Everybody has their own way of reciting it. Let's go along with the crowd in this one. We're in his living room, so let's listen to him. Form is our material aspect, our physical body. Okay, I got it. Feelings and discrimination are classified as separate aggregates because of their critical role in how we engage with the world. So much depends on how we identify objects in the first place and how we respond to them, with feelings of pleasure, displeasure, or indifference. Discrimination sets it up, and then you either like, dislike, or don't give a darn. I don't care. I was going to say something worse. Compositional factors are everything left that does not fit into the other four aggregates, the varied factors that contribute to our overall mental states, such as faith, pride, hope, doubt, anger, and equanimity, and also the factors within us that are neither form nor consciousness, such as the impermanence of the aggregates or the residual karmic seeds accumulated in the mind. They put it all in that pile. You should think of the aggregates as heaps. That's what they mean, Pumba and Tibet, or Skanda. Separate piles, this and that. And the last one gets everything. The last aggregate, mind, and we call it compositional factor sometimes. This has 10,000 names, and it's very confusing to guys like me. But, maybe the monastics know how to handle this. We'll have to consult. The last aggregate, mind, incorporates the basic mental and sense consciousnesses. In other words, eye consciousness, ear. Each of the five is called an aggregate to remind us that it too is only a transitory collection of parts and moving on. Everything's moving on. Everything is kinetic, you could say, in that respect. I'm checking the time so I don't babble too much. The permanent unitary independent self, if it existed, it's a hypothetical, would have to be distinct from the aggregates, just as temporarily associating with them, just temporary, like associating with them. For simplicity, we may like it to a dry pea in a jar. When the jar of the aggregates is smashed, the pea of the self then goes on alone to the next life. But if the self really were like that, then we ought to be able to put the aggregates aside one by one and still isolate the self right there as another item separate from them. Can you have the I without body, mind, and all those mental components? Can you? You should. People automatically think, yeah, the I is in charge of all this. It's something else. Is it? I don't know. His Holiness says, where's the I all the time? So you should be able to isolate it and separate it from the aggregate. But such a thing is not found. If we remove the parts of a bicycle one by one, we've taken all of them away, no bicycle remains. The self is like that. So you might stop now. Wait, where the hell is this mind come? We impute. We created it. So all this thing that gets depressed, etc., this ego-centric thing that we posit is our own creation. Get rid of it, you're really free. So we'll leave it at that. We'll continue this. Jane's leg is in pain. We don't have much time. So I just wanted to get back to the basic Lam Rim of where we left off, at least so you hear directly the inside chapters, plural, of, and I should have marked the page. I did, but I marked it with a pen and not a piece of paper. 68. We're in chapter 14, called Conventional Existence, and we're going to page 179 of the actual root test, the Lam Rim Chen Mo, volume 3. And this is page 179. So talking about, I'll give you the introductory sentence because otherwise I pick it up where we exactly left off. You might be included. We're talking about a conventional consciousness and how it operates in a non-inquisitive manner. It operates only within the context of how a given phenomena appears to it without analyzing, is this how the object actually exists or just or does it just appear this way to my mind? In everyday life, we don't do this, right? It is called non-analytical consciousness, but it is not the case that is utterly non-acquisitive. No, we went to that. You do make decisions within conceptual appearances, the better school, the better computer, whatever. That's normal, okay? Thus, no matter what mind stream whose mind stream it occurs in, this is called mundane knowledge or non-analytical consciousness. Okay, now, here's where we left off. Do not suppose that it exists only in the mind streams of those worldly persons who are not involved in philosophical tenet systems. No. Those who are involved in such systems may often have minds that analyze, is this conventional knowledge accurate, or does this object exist in this way in reality? They might. Still, how could all of their consciousnesses analyze how things actually exist? Because they can't. They got to make decisions based on apparent reality because they're not Buddhists, you know. Therefore, if you want to understand what worldly knowledge is, you cannot ask only those worldly elders who hold no philosophical tenets. However, it is sufficient to consider how non-analytical minds operate in the mind streams of the two parties in the debate. What these consciousnesses know is the perceptual or experiential basis for the construction of conventional language. We convene on a meaning, conventional. Ordinary people do not understand karma and its effects. I'll let it, the levels and path or such matters, but they hear about and experience them, thereby taking them as objects. To know karma and effects, you have to be a full Buddha. The subtle thing of you doing a little of this and getting a big result 50 lives later, whatever. Only a Buddha can see that. So people talk about, oh, that was caused by this and that. Maybe they don't know. Don't tell them. They'll be unhappy. And as this is so, they appear to ordinary consciousness that are not analyzing how things actually exist. We thus avoid the foul that these would not be things that the world knows. The world knows these things. We don't throw them all out. The Madhyamikas. By the way, last session, I called the Yogacara school of Madhyamika. It's not, it's a Mahayana. Madhyamika starts with Svatantrika. I misspoke, but I went over the tape and I saw the mistake. So he continues in the middle of page 179. Other conventional valid cognitions do not contradict that which exists conventionally. Right. For example, a consciousness that does not analyze how things actually exist may think that a rope is a snake, is back again, or that mirage is water. However, another conventional valid cognition does contradict the objects apprehended by such a consciousness. So these objects don't even exist conventionally. Okay, we did that last week too. There's a mirage. No, that's not even a conventional appearance. That's a mistake. It's not water. It looks like water, but it isn't. So you can't say that's a conventional truth. It came to his mind. It's not a conventional truth. Conventional truth has parameters. You have to define it. If another worldly consciousness says, no, that's not. You can't drink that. Oh, yeah, you're right. That's it. Let it go at that. A reasoning consciousness that accurately analyzes whether something intrinsically exists or inherently exists does not contradict that which exists conventionally. It doesn't. It's not its business. Jung used to say it's not an authority of convention. It's authority for ultimate existence, if inherent existence, not yes or no. Not as its authority for positing conventionalities. What is posited conventionally must be established by conventional valid cognition. Yes, that is rope. That ain't no snake, if you want to put it that way. Okay? What is posited conventionally must be established by conventional valid cognition. In addition, reasoning consciousnesses that accurately analyze whether it intrinsically exists definitely must not contradict it in any way. We're not saying it's not appearing to you. We're saying it doesn't. That appearance is not an intrinsically existent item. That's all. Otherwise, yeah, it's a car. You're going to have to pay for it. So, in addition, reasoning consciousness that accurately analyzes whether it intrinsically exists definitely must not contradict it in any way. Okay. Whatever such reasoning consciousness establishes as existing must exist essentially. They're looking for essential existence or inherent existence. They're not saying I'm looking for empties. I'm looking for inherent existence. Oh, it's not there. Okay. Because of this, it is wrong to confuse one, and this is an argument that goes on and on. You'll see it again. One, not being contradicted by a reasoning consciousness, okay? Reasoning consciousness, yes, that's the model. Being established by a reasoning consciousness, so not being contradicted and being established, two different things. Such confusion is the basis for the misconception that the two following propositions stand equally, either both true or both false. 1. Pleasure and pain arise conventionally from virtue and non-virtue. And 2. Pleasure and pain arise from a divine creator and a primal essence. This misconception is incorrect. The two propositions are equivalent to the extent that a line of reasoning that accurately analyzes whether things intrinsically exist will establish neither. They both don't intrinsically exist. But the two are not alike in all respect. One is contradicted by reason and the other not. Reason negates the primal creator. There's a lot of arguments on that. That's permanent, never moving, above the fray and all that. And reasoning gets rid of that. He goes on page 180, and I go on checking the time. A partless object and subject, a self, a primal essence, a divine creator, such things are imaginary constructs. A lot of people don't think so, but reasoning shows that they are. Put forward in the unique assertions of Buddhist and non-Buddhist essentialists, those who believe in inherent existence. And anyway, technically any school under the Prasangikas. But let's not get into those weeds now. When they posit such, they do so after rational analysis of whether such things essentially exist. They think that this sort of rational analysis will discover these things. Which, if you're looking for essential existence, you're going to not find it, because there's no such thing. So, thus, because they assert that these things can withstand rational analysis, you have to accept that others outside of their schools can perform such rational analysis in order to discover whether these things intrinsically exist, not just exist, intrinsically exist. When analyzed in this way, such things cannot withstand the pressure of inquiry by impeccable reasonings, the inherent existence part of them. But they're still there. It doesn't wipe them out, okay? Thus, when reason does not find them, they stand refuted, for if they did exist, such reasoning would have to find them. We posit forms, we being the Prasangikas, we posit forms, sound, and such only as they are known to conventional consciousnesses that are not impaired by internal or external causes of error. In other words, everybody sees that's not jaundice and they see the right color, or can't see well, or was disturbed by some drug and sees things that aren't there. We don't posit those, but we posit things that everyone sees, what the world sees, etc. We've been repeating this a lot, but it's important because people go off on the wrong direction, not knowing this. We do not assert them as part of a system in which an analysis of whether they are mere conventions or instead have objective existence, another synonym for intrinsic existence from its own side, objective, without dependence on a designating consciousness. That's what they're getting at here. These words are loaded. Now, whether they're mere conventions or what instead have objective existence, we'll find that they essentially or intrinsically exist. That they don't. Thus, rational analysis of whether they intrinsically exist is irrelevant because we don't assert that these objects can withstand rational analysis, that type. For example, if someone claims this is a sheep, it isn't appropriate to analyze this claim by asking, is it a horse or an elephant? No, you're just dealing with the world. Everyone in the world says it's a sheep. That's it. You don't answer. This is similar, he's saying. So there are things that have been, quote, known to the world, the average person, from beginningless time, and yet do not exist even conventionally, inasmuch as reason contradicts them, the divine creator, things like that. As examples, one can cite the essence that ignorance superposes on things, the essentially existent I and mind, even better. And everybody thinks that exists. The I is a solid thing and blah, blah, blah. As examples are repeated, one can cite the essence that ignorance superimposes on things, the essentially existent I and mind, conceived by, here's another loaded word, the reifying view of the perishing aggregates, or the object of the convention that yesterday's mountain is today's mountain. Therefore, it is not a case that Madhyamikas conventionally accept everything that is known to the world. So today's mountain isn't yesterday's mountain, but it's a mountain. We're not arguing that point. Does it intrinsically exist? No, but it's a mountain. Here's the mountain, everybody. Fine. There's a lot in that. The reifying view of the perishing aggregates. To reify is to make something a thing. It's subliminally to extract it from the flow of reality, solidify it. It's there, it's static, it does that. And that's how our brain works. Yeah, it's reifying. Ray is the Latin word for thing. Perishing aggregates are, yes, the are body and mind components. They are perishing because they're moment by moment. A little harsh to say perishing because we think they're gone forever, but changing. Maybe. So that word you're going to hear a lot, that phrase, perishing aggregates. Or the object of the conception, yesterday's mountain is the same. Okay, therefore, it's not the case the Madhyamikas accept everything that is known in the world. All right, we're going over that. He's going over that point a lot. He's beating it down. Some argue it's Sankaba continues bottom 180 now. I know it's thick, but it's good to hear it. Slowly we'll come around to it, and then boom, the stakes are high. You get out of samsara. Ooh, it's better than Las Vegas. Some argue that in terms of conventional existence, forms, sounds, and so forth, they're not equivalent to the constructs of non-Buddhist philosophers for the reason that the former are known to all the world, whereas the latter are known only to advocates of philosophical tenets. It's true. Those who hold this position have failed to make careful distinctions. Otherwise, they would see the many unwanted implications of the argument, such as, in conventional terms, form and such could not be like illusions. Rather, at the conventional level, they will have to exist essentially. And you know who thinks that way? The Svatantrikas. Also, Chandrakirti's commentary on Nagarjuna's 60 stanzas of reasoning says, and he says, Chandrakirti says, the inaccurate are those that apprehend these things in cyclic existence only as blissful and so forth. This we can check out ourselves. Are things really blissful and cyclic existence? No matter how great they are, do they last? Do you have a compulsion to go back to them? And that's not happiness, that's suffering. You don't have it anymore and you want it. So not blissful. Even conventionally, these things do not have this nature. The accurate are those that apprehend these things as suffering and so forth, because these things have such a nature conventionally. Bang, 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 the bell goes off. So we'll leave it at that because we're running out of time, and I never got to. We'll do Geshe Sopa's comments on these paragraphs. We'll come back Tuesday night in Bowery and Houston. Darren, do you have any names?
No.
Okay. For those who have passed away recently, no one has sent in a name. You can consider the violence in the world and pray for the poor innocent people that get involved in it, even the ones who perpetrated it, the ones who involved fighting, etc. Never ends. And we can go around the globe and find spots where everything's inflamed with high-class weapons.
I got one name for you.
We have a name. Ladies and gentlemen, the name is
Susan Hackenbrook.
Susan Hackenbrook. Quack in the bush. Susan Hackenbrook. As in Brook or Book?
Kay Doherty.
Kay Doherty. A fine Irish name. I know anyone for whom you wish to pray for has passed away recently, years ago, whatever. I prostrate to the omniscient one. This is the sutra, the recollection of noble three jewels. Prostrate to the omniscient one. Thus the Buddha, Bhagavad, Tathagata, Arahat, Samyak Sang Buddha, the learned and virtuous one, the Sugata, the knower of the world, the charioteer and tamer of beings, the unsurpassable one, the teacher of devas and humans is the Buddha Bhagavat. The Tathagata is in accord with all merit. He does not waste the roots of virtue. He is completely ornamented with all patience. He is the basis of the treasures of merit. He is adorned with the minor marks. He blossoms with the flowers of the major marks. His activity is timely and appropriate. Seeing him, he is without disharmony. He brings true joy to those who long with faith. His knowledge cannot be overpowered. His strengths cannot be challenged. He is the teacher of all sentient beings. He's the father of bodhisattvas. He's the king of noble ones. He's the guide of those who journey to the city of nirvana. He possesses immeasurable wisdom. He possesses inconceivable confidence. His speech is completely pure. His melody is pleasing. One never has enough of seeing him. His form is incomparable. He's not stained by the realm of desire. He's not stained by the realm of form. He is not affected by the formless realm. He is completely liberated from suffering. He is completely and utterly liberated from the skandhas. He is not possessed with dhatus. His ayatanas are controlled. He has completely cut the knots. He is completely liberated from extreme torment. He is liberated from craving. He has crossed over the river. He is perfected in all the wisdoms. He abides in the wisdom of the Buddha Bhagavats, who rise in the past, present, and future. He does not abide in nirvana. He abides in the ultimate perfection. He dwells on the bhumi where he sees all sentient beings. All these are the perfect virtues of the greatness of the Buddha Bhagavat. Excuse me. The Holy Dharma is good at the beginning, good in the middle, and good at the end. Its meaning is excellent. Its words are excellent. It is uncorrupted. It is completely perfect and completely pure. It completely purifies. The Bhagavat teaches the Dharma well. It brings complete vision. It is free from sickness. It is always timely. It directs one further. Seeing it fulfills one's purpose. It brings discriminating insight for the wise. The Dharma, which is taught by the Bhagavat, is revealed properly in the Vinaya. It is renunciation. It causes one to arrive at perfect enlightenment. It is without contradiction. It is pithy. It is trustworthy and puts an end to the journey. As for the Sangha of the Great Jnana, they enter completely, they enter insightfully, they enter straightforwardly, they enter harmoniously. They are worthy of veneration with joined palms. They are worthy of receiving prostration. They're an object of generosity. They are a great object of complete generosity. The protector who possesses great kindness, the omniscient teacher, the basis of oceans of merit and virtue, I prostrate to the Tathagata. Pure, the cause of freedom from passion, virtuous, liberating from the lower realms. This alone is the supreme, ultimate truth. I prostrate to the Dharma, which is peace. Having been liberated, they show the path to liberation. They are fully dedicated to the disciplines. They are a holy field of merit and possess virtue. I prostrate to the Sangha. I prostrate to the Buddha, the leader. I prostrate to the Dharma, the protector. I prostrate to the Sangha, the community. I prostrate respectfully and always to these three. The Buddha's virtues are inconceivable. The Dharma's virtues are inconceivable. The Sangha's virtues are inconceivable. Having faith in these inconceivables, therefore the fruitions are inconceivable. May they be born in a completely pure realm. So that ends our presentation tonight. I'll do the next class Tuesday night at the Settlement House on Bowery and Houston, and then Jackie will do Wednesday night and then next Tuesday. So we'll do 2 in a row, each of us. So you'll get a nice variety. And while Jackie is here, we're taking advantage of her generosity with her time and her passing on to us the teachings that she gets in India. So we're very happy about this. Happy New Year, everyone. Have a good weekend. There's no Tara this weekend. So our next class, Tuesday night from New York City. Check the website. Everybody's welcome. Big love to all of you. Thanks for your patient listening.